topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where we bring you the finest experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Our first expert is with us every other week, and I am telling you, this is the perfect firm for estate planning, because I'm going to tell you something different than all other areas of law. Estate planning, you better have a heart for it, and you better have a heart for people. And we couldn't find a better, she's not allowed to say, I can say expert. She's the managing attorney and the owner of the Dean Law Firm. What they do is they do estate planning. It's a boutique. They're located in Sugar Land, but listen, you can live 100 miles from Sugar Land, and now we have all the great technology. We can just zoom in, so you don't have to live close by. She's been in practice for over 30 years. Her staff is amazing because I've dealt with them. Let me introduce you to who I think is the top estate planning attorney in the state of Texas, Julia Dean.
Hi, Steve. Good afternoon. Thank you. What a kind introduction.
I really mean that. I don't know. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've dealt with all kinds of attorneys, even a maritime attorney. But in estate planning, Julia, you've got to have, to me, a big heart, because I mean you're dealing with children, you're dealing with passing, and you just have the perfect heart for them. Tell everybody, because we're getting new listeners and viewers every day, tell people about your practice and your background.
Well, I have the honor of helping people strategically avoid problems by putting into place a proactive estate plan that can deal with their own disability as well as their passing and how that would pass to their loved ones. And so we always are trying to look forward to, okay, what are all the what ifs and how can we avoid those issues and make your situation and your family situation so much easier. And so that's our goal. And then if we need to, we will help with a probate or a guardianship or elder law, special needs planning. All of that intersects and becomes part of the overall estate plan and implementing or seeing it through. So those are the areas that I practice in exclusively. I've done that for many years now. I've practiced over 30 years, starting out in commercial litigation, going into civil appellate law, which is kind of an attorney's attorney, where we take a case that's already been tried up to the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court. But I got more and more removed from the people that I wanted to help. And so that's why I 16 years ago, a little over 16 years ago, I went into practice on my own. And I decided that really estate planning would allow me to combine the love I have for people and the strategy and the research and writing that I really love together, but in a proactive manner, and get out of the contested situations as much as possible and really help people proactively. And so I did that, and that has been what I love. It's my sweet spot, and I just enjoy meeting with people and helping people.
I got to tell you, Julie and I will talk before the show, and I'll find out what she would like to talk about. And why am I surprised that here we are right around Christmas time and she wants to talk about strategic gifting? I should have known you would say that.
Right. Yeah, I usually try to talk about this at the end of the year to either our clients or on air because I think it's so important and it's a great time of the year. I love it. I love the gift giving. We give all throughout our year, but it seems like it comes more, to the forefront as we're just ending up our year, making sure that we're making some strategic gifts. But I just think of the joy that we can bring to others by gifting and improving their lives, whether we're gifting to charity or even our own loved ones. And so I think we can have a real positive impact on our community. And I love that.
You know what? I truly believe that. By the way, how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, it was wonderful. We had my daughter and her husband and their family, or parts of their family, and we had three little ones, three little boys. It was just so wonderful to see Thanksgiving through their eyes. We went to some holiday lights in Sugar Land after that, and they were just like, wow. And just seeing it through their eyes, I loved it because, you experience that joy all over again as if you were a child.
Well, I also want to tell people that over the Thanksgiving holidays, you were also sick, and we're so glad you're doing better. I know I had you in my prayers, and I'm just so glad that we have you. Am I sucking up? I am sucking up. I love this woman. But, this is what I love. I love the fact that if we can just touch one person each show, I'm just as happy as can be. And I'm glad that I trust you so much, I guess. So we're going to be talking about gifting today. And what are some of the gifts we can give others as well as charities towards the end of the year?
I think most people think of the traditional kinds of gifts that we give at the end of the year, whether that's outright gifting to our loved ones or to charities. And if we are thinking about lowering our tax bill, which some of us are at the end of the year too, how can we kind of get a double bang for the buck, because if we're not having to pay taxes on it, we can give more to our charities, our churches and communities. And so it's been really a great time to think strategically. Even just this past Tuesday was Giving Tuesday. And I think we all start thinking about that more. So if we want to lower our tax bill and have a greater impact on our charities, we can give outright gifts before the end of the year. And we can also give gifts in trust. And so a lot of people, if they maybe have had a big bonus in the year, or they've sold a business, or for some other reason, they have a lot of assets coming in, and now they're going to have a huge tax bill if they don't do something. This is the perfect time to get into plays like some charitable trust or charitable gift annuities or a private foundation. That's because we can gift now a large amount and we get the full deduction, but we don't have to gift it all at once, so we can be strategic in how we give to the charity. So there's different ways we can set it up, but I love that because we can have an impact not only now, but in the future, but get our tax deduction now. And, we just, as Americans, we're wonderfully charitable. I love that yes. About 80% of us are giving. And of those, even 73% don't receive a charitable deduction. But if they did, just what a bigger impact they could give, because then they could give more. So it's a wonderful trait, but we just need to think about how we give so we can have a better impact to other people. And then I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about gifts to people too. So that was gifts to charity, gifts to people. We can give gifts without having to worry about the gifting ramifications or the gift tax return. If we give up to what we call the annual exclusion amount, which currently in 2023 is up to $17,000 per year per person. And some people use that strategically to gift every year to their loved ones, to start bringing down their estate and still give them a benefit. And so the nice thing about that, no gift tax return is due if we're under that amount. And next year it goes up to 18,000. And so if we gift as a married couple, we can double that. So I like that too. We have some
Yes.
nice gifting
You
options.
know, I've told you that I'm a altar counselor at my church, and
Yeah.
that means that after church at the altar, people can, come up and ask for prayer, and it just kind of shows the times that we're in. My lines are a lot longer now than ever before, just because it costs so much more to live now,
Yes.
and everything's higher. So I love the idea about gifting, and boy, there's a lot of different charities out there. Do you ever have a person come to you and they want you to represent them, but don't really know who to gift the money to, that you need to kind of help them along with that?
Yes, and we certainly can help direct them to different wonderful charities. All the charities that receive charitable deductions have to file public disclosures, and so you can see where the money is going. And there's some where 100% of your gift is going to whatever you designate it to, my husband works at a cancer hospital, and so when he raises money, 100% of that goes to research for cancer research. But sometimes you gift and only 60% goes there. So it's always good to do some research and see, how much of your gift is going to go towards the cause that you wanted it to go to, and how much maybe to administrative expenses, which of course they need to have too. But, we want to make sure that's not too out of line. And there's a variety of charities, which is just wonderful, depending on what your interests are, what you'd like to support.
I heard the other day that Mattress Mac,
Yes.
who I've had on my show several times before, we have talked about gifting, and he is very charitable.
He is. He's quite the philanthropist, and even during our hurricanes, he opened up his own store for people to come and sleep on the beds and in there and get a safe place, which you just don't see that much with businesses. The schools would open up and churches would open up, but for a business to do that, you just see his heart, which is wonderful.
I remember when the hurricane was there and he opened up his showroom for people to sleep on brand new furniture. That just blew me away.
Yes, it really did.
What kind of taxes could there be on these gifting that we give?
Well, that's a good question. So probably we need to kind of step back and think about the different kinds of taxes. So there's death taxes, which we call estate taxes, and then there's gift taxes. And we have also, as we have a estate tax or death tax exemption, we also have a gift tax exemption when we gift during our lifetime. And it's a lifetime exemption. And right now it's unified with the death tax exemption. So if we gift during our lifetime, then we have less to gift upon our death and keep it covered from death taxes. So if we can do it strategically, where we're not lowering the amount of our exemption because we might need to use it, then we want to do that. And so, we've got to look at, okay, what is the federal estate tax exemption? Right now it's really high, so most people aren't worried about it. It's 10 million plus inflation. So this year it's 12.92 million. Next year, 13.61 million. But in 2026, January 1st of 2026, and that's only 2 years from now, it is going to go back to 5 million plus inflation. And since it's such a political football, and it's been as low as $1 million fairly recently, we need to keep that in mind. Now, fortunately, those of us here in Texas don't have to worry about a state or Texas death tax. But we do have to think about the federal, or if we have real estate in other states or our loved ones that we're giving things to are in other states, then we may incur another tax too. But we just want to keep in mind to preserve as much of our estate tax exemption, because we don't know what it's going to be. It was $600,000 when I started working in this area. It was a long time ago, but I did start working in this area at $600,000, and almost everybody was subject to some kind of estate tax. And I think it's because people don't realize what's included in your estate. The IRS looks at every single thing that you have,
How do you keep up with it all, Julia?
a lot of learning, a lot of research. You're right.
To me, and I know that every year just there's so many changes, and it looks like there's going to be a lot of changes for 2024.
Yes.
So how do you keep up with that?
So just continued education, legal education. This is my area, so it's important that I stay up to date on what's going on there. Actually, in November, I spent a full week and just really intensive learning. And it was pretty much day and night, and for 4 days. And but it was wonderful because, and even though it was really in depth, it just brought everything, what all the changes that are about to occur, and some that we're anticipating may or may not occur, but just to have them on our radar so that we're planning in anticipation of what might happen. And in fact, just a couple of years ago, it looked like they were going to revamp everything and just put us at a place where we really had hardly any tools in our toolbox left to help with state taxes and death taxes, to help with getting assets out of the estate, to protect assets. So we're grateful that died, but we still know that there's a lot of talk about what they might want to do for the state taxes or changing the tax regime in a lot of different ways. So we're definitely keeping our eye on that and just seeing what we need to do.
I watched the debate last night between the two governors, the governor of Florida and the governor of California. Yeah. And they were actually talking about Texas, and there's no state taxes there. Found it very interesting that there's so many people who are moving to Texas from California, from what I understand.
Right.
And so a lot of it's because the taxes are so high there.
Actually, one of the attorneys that, I've had two come from California because of that very same situation. And, just a lot of businesses are moving here. And I think, it just generates a lot of incentive for people to do better. And then just my economics background is just then we see even more revenue coming in because people do better, and there's just that incentive there. So we do see that, and it's been a great
So you like this better than litigating, right?
I do. Yes.
Tell everybody explain estate tax to them.
So estate tax is a death tax that is put on your assets. So even though your assets have been taxed all throughout your lifetime, when you pass away, they're going to put another death tax on it. But they do have that exemption. So remember, if it's under that exemption amount, there's no death tax on it. But over that, there's a 40% tax right now, which is actually on the lower side, believe it or not.
It is?
Yes.
Sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. It's ranged from 35% to 70. And so we are on the lower end of that range. They have recently wanted to bring it up to 60 to 65%. So, and lower the exemption to 3 or 3.5 million. But fortunately, we're still at that higher rate, but automatically it goes back to 5 million plus inflation if there's no law change, which there probably won't be, but there may. So we're just anticipating that automatic sunset, that it's going to go back to the 5 million plus inflation.
So here we just got a different question. This is from Harold. Looks like he's from Friendswood. He wants to know if you are considered a financial advisor also.
No, I'm not. I learned a lot about that because I feel like it's such an important piece of all of this. But I work with you're a financial advisor. If you don't have one, and would like one, we can also refer you to some advisors. But I feel like that financial advisor, the CPA, and the estate planning attorney is kind of like a three-legged stool, is how I've heard it described before. And you want all three because they each give different insight into your full estate and help protect it in different ways. But yeah, they're going to be more on how do you invest things and how best to protect you and position you for retirement or taking assets out of retirement and maximizing those assets. So I think it's a really important. I just can't keep up with all of that, but I do have a very good understanding of all of that. So I work with them very closely.
Well, you sure know about taxes, that's for sure.
Yes, I do. I do.
There, I keep getting people who are watching there's a question that they all keep asking, and it's about this revocable living trust. And I don't know why that people ask about that so much.
Right.
And they don't really understand it. So maybe while we've got you on, maybe you can help explain exactly what a revocable living trust is.
Yeah, so actually it's a wonderful gift you can give yourself and your family while we're looking at year-end gifts, right? Because, like a will, it's the legacy plan, who gets what, how they get it. So we can have that within a living trust. There's also a great disability plan, and it allows us to have that legacy plan without court involvement and to have a great disability plan without court involvement. And so if we can avoid court, we can avoid not only the delay, but the expense, which is pretty significant, of going through court, whether in a probate, but especially in a guardianship kind of proceeding. So a living trust is revocable and changeable, and we're putting your assets inside this trust. And I just visualize it like a bucket that we're taking your assets, putting them into the bucket so they're owned by the trust or have a beneficiary designation through the trust. And as long as everything's flowing through there, then we will avoid probate, the court-ordered process. And a lot of people think, well, if I had a will done by an attorney, I'm not going to need probate. But that's not true. You can have a valid will with everything done right, and we still have to take it through probate because the judge needs to give it stamp of approval, and then they have to qualify the person you named as executor to serve as executor. And they don't think they're qualified, they won't be the one serving, even though you've named them. And then they receive the authority from the court if they approve them to handle the estate. So it doesn't happen until after the hearing where they appoint them as the executor and they receive letters testamentary, which is that authority from the court. Do they even have the ability to manage the estate? So that's usually 2 to 4 months after we start the process to get in and do that. We can avoid all of that with a living trust. We can have someone named who can step right in, because if your assets are owned by your trust, then the next successor trustee is the one who manages it, which is great in disability too, because let's say you're in a car accident and you end up in the hospital and you can't pay your bills. Well, in our trust, usually we say, well, if 2 independent doctors say you're unable to handle your financial affairs, then your successor trustee can just step right in your shoes, and then they have the ability to handle everything. And so we're not risking a guardianship because otherwise we're relying on a power of attorney. And the power of attorney may or may not be honored in Texas. And if it's not honored in Texas, unfortunately, our only other option is a guardianship, which is, it takes months really to get a guardianship in place, and it takes a lot of money. And even once it's in place, everything has to be approved by the court. So it's not something that once they have that authority, they're free to handle things themselves. No, the court oversees everything. And there's motions and hearings and orders that have to be done on a continual basis to make sure your estate is being protected. But if you know who you want to trust to handle those things, or if you don't have that person, you want a corporate trustee, you name that in your living trust, and it's just seamless, and they can go ahead and just take over upon showing those doctor's letters. Or if you've got a diagnosis of something, where it's dementia and you're going to get worse, then you just resign, and we don't even have to do that. We just have that successor trustee step in your shoes. So it's really a great vehicle for avoiding probate, avoiding guardianship, and having privacy of your estate.
Julia, you're the best. Look how fast our show goes by. Give everybody your phone number and your website.
Thank you. Yeah, my phone number is 281-277-3326. So it's 281-277. It's actually Dean, DEAN. And my website is www.julia, Julia, Dean, DEAN, law, LAW.com. So just juliadeanlaw.com.
And you can always go back to iHeart or to YouTube and find any of our past shows. Julia's with us twice a month. She'll be back again with us in a couple weeks. Julia, well, I guess I will be able to talk to you before Christmas. So I'm not going to wish you a Merry Christmas yet. We love you. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to be doing our, speaking of taxes, our tax relief show. And we got such a great expert for that. We'll be right back.
K. Bender Rembaum is a full-service community association law firm dedicated to the representation of community associations throughout Florida. On kbrlegal.com, you can learn more about their offices in Pompano Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, Orlando, Tampa, as well as throughout Miami-Dade by appointment. Several K. Bender Rembaum attorneys are board-certified specialists in condominium and plan development law and assist clients with all matters of community association legal issues while keeping them up to date on new developments that affect their associations. K. Bender Rembaum is also a well-known provider of free legal education for managers and board members. Contact K. Bender Rembaum today by calling 800-974-0680. That's 800-974-0680 to reach any of their locations. You can also visit them online at kbrlegal.com or write to them at info@kbrlegal.com.
And we are back with the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV with your hosts, Steve-O, Sophia, and their expert guests.
Oh, I love this next show. Our next expert is a tax resolution expert. And I got to tell you, with all these changes in the law, our economy is, I mean, I'm just going to come right, our economy sucks right now. And, you know, there's people that are getting behind on their taxes. A lot of people are not even filing their taxes because they don't have the money. But this next expert, we're going to explain everything to you. And we don't want you putting that envelope with the 3 letters on it, unsealed, in that drawer in the house, because it's not going to go away. Let me introduce you to attorney Elizabeth Brown, who's with Defense Tax. Good afternoon, Elizabeth.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing today?
We're doing wonderful. Now you're actually in doing the show from, is it Philadelphia or New York?
Actually, Tennessee. We're in Knoxville.
Tennessee. Well, I was close. New York, Tennessee. You know, we had a few people that wrote last time you were on. First of all, thanking us for the show, but telling you what a great job you did. And I think that's nice when people take the time out to write, you know, about a show. Let's tell everybody about your background and about Defense Tax.
Yeah, so at Defense Tax Firm, we're a nationwide tax firm that assists clients before the IRS and state tax authorities. We can assist our clients with all types of tax matters, tax compliance, tax filings, liability resolution, representation before the U.S. tax court. We do it all, Steve.
Hey, are you afraid of those guys now? They have a gun on their hip.
No, I'm not.
I heard a commercial the other day saying how they've become even more intimidating than ever before. But what's great about your company is once somebody retains you,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to talk to the IRS anymore. That
That's
all
correct.
falls on your shoulders.
That's correct. And we actually insist the clients don't, because a lot of times what clients don't realize is that, they're the IRS agent or the auditor will call them up on the phone and they're very nice and polite. And they talk about things that they really should not be discussing with the auditor. And sometimes they let things slip that maybe if they had hired someone like us, they would have been, guided to not say those things. Because everything that you tell an auditor, everything that you tell the IRS, they can use against you.
Yeah, and you're actually giving them a roadmap to your money, and people don't know, because you're right. Sometimes they act like you're the best friend,
Right.
and you start giving out information. If there's anything people can learn from this show, you do not want to handle this yourself, because you're going up against some people that are very good at what they do. And when you hire a company like Elizabeth, what you do is you make the playing field a lot more level. Is that correct?
That is correct. A lot of the agents and the auditors that we are, working in opposition with are not attorneys. They don't know the tax case laws. They don't know a lot of the rules and regulations, and they certainly haven't read case law around what they are saying that you are liable for. So you want to have an attorney on your side to ensure that your rights are being enforced.
Yeah, we got a letter again last time you were on from a truck driver.
Mm.
And a lot of truck drivers listen to our show because, listen, they want to be educated too. And they thought this was a great program for a truck driver because they're gone so much. And like he said, I let my taxes get away from me. And sometimes we're talking years.
Yeah.
So we got a big audience with truck drivers for some reason. I wanted to ask you is, with all these new laws and these new agents coming around, do you find that you know a lot more than a lot of these agents do?
Well, definitely about the tax laws. Again, that's what I went to school for 7 years to understand was, laws and regulations. Many times, again, the auditors or the agents are not tax attorneys. They're not attorneys at all. So they don't understand, they don't always understand the laws or the regulation. A great example, speaking of a truck driver, a great example is I had a client who got audited. He was a truck driver. He got audited, and the auditor had misapplied the rule regarding his residency. So basically what the auditor said was that even though the truck driver had a home and he had his office there, he had a place where he could park his truck, even though he had this home, the auditor said because he was on the road so much, he could not count this as his home as his office space.
Okay.
What that meant was that all his business expenses for travel could not be counted. Basically, they said he had no home base. So and of course that rule was completely misinterpreted. When we appealed the decision, we won because we pointed out the case law, we pointed out the laws and regulations that had that applied to him to show that he did.
You beat the government?
It's not as hard as
all their resources.
Yeah, no. In all seriousness, Steve, we we work really hard with each and every one of our clients to make sure that situations like this don't happen. I mean, the guy would have ended up owing over $100,000, and we got that tax bill down to zero because they were,
Oh,
again,
yay for you.
yeah.
Let me ask you something. You're an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
What is an enrolled agent?
So an enrolled agent is not an attorney. They're an individual who has studied, again, the tax laws and regulations, the case laws, and they take a test. And they've studied they take a course, they've studied for many months, and then they take a test. And if they pass that test, it's a 3-part test. It is not easy, Steve. If they pass that test, then they can represent you before the IRS. So our firm is made up of attorneys, enrolled agents, and we have like administrative assistants and paralegals and such. And we all work as a team to represent our clients before the IRS and the states.
I usually save this question to the end, but I want to ask this question now. What is the difference between your firm, Tax Partners, Defense Tax Partners, and these other firms out there?
That's a great question, Steve. And it's near and dear to my heart because I am, representing this firm, and I'm representing our clients through this firm. And what I truly believe is that we work harder than any other firm that is out there. Every case is ever seen by a tax attorney. And then each case is assigned to a team. So it's either made up of a tax attorney and case managers and the administrative assistant, or it's made up of enrolled agents, case managers, and administrative assistants. And we work very hard and very diligently to make sure that each case is handled appropriately and we get the best results for our clients.
I wanted to talk a little bit more today about business taxes.
Yeah.
There's so many individuals who work for themselves out there. And, there's truck drivers that actually work for themselves now. And they receive a 1099.
Mm-hmm.
Are their tax filings different than a regular wage earner?
Yeah. So typically your wage earners, they get W-2s at the end of the year. They're considered employees working for somebody. A 1099 is an individual who's working for themselves. Now, depending on how that individual has structured their business will depend on the type of business tax filing that they need to do. But let's just focus on that Schedule C because, Steve, this is where I see a lot of taxpayers getting audited or having larger tax liabilities at the end of the year, and just completely caught by surprise.
So what is C?
Yeah, a Schedule C is a form that's filed by an individual business owner. So the business owner, so that individual actually owns the business by themselves. They don't have a partner. They don't have a board or anything like that. They're just a individual like yourself or myself who works for themselves and they receive 1099s. On a Schedule C, this Schedule C that's filed with the 1040, that Schedule C is considered the business tax filing. Okay. And on that form, that business owner will report gross receipts, the income that they earned that year. They'll report their earnings and business expenses on this form. So, for example, if you have a home office, that's where you'll report your office expenses. If you have, if you use your car or truck for your business, that's where you'll report those business expenses.
So there's a lot of people out there that do own their own businesses. And it's tough because paperwork gets away from you. You get busy, and all of a sudden it's kind of snowballs. If you don't file 1 year, then it turns to 2 years, it turns to 3 years. How far back does the IRS go?
So typically they'll go back. That's a great question. Typically they'll go back 7 years. That's the amount of time that they have to say you have to file your taxes. So as of this year, they can go all the way back to 2016. So, and if you're a small business owner and you haven't kept great business records, and they come and say they assign a revenue officer and say, oh, we need you to file all these taxes now, you can imagine how stressful that would be for an individual.
Oh, yeah. Seems like businesses pay a lot more in taxes. Are they usually taxed at a much higher rate also?
No, not necessarily. But what happens with businesses is the business owner becomes 100% responsible for those Social Security and Medicare taxes, also known as employment taxes. So, when you look at your W-2, Steve, you see the taxes taken out. You see your federal taxes withheld, and then you see the employer withholds the Social Security and the Medicare for you. What a lot of business owners don't always understand is that you have to pay those taxes for yourself. Now, you're supposed to make estimated tax payments throughout the year, but a lot of business owners will wait until the end of the year, and then they're surprised because you're not only paying the withholding tax, but you're paying an additional 15.3% in employment taxes.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you look at, it's really interesting. When you look at your W-2, if you look at the amount of taxes that you pay throughout the year, and then you compare it to your tax filings, you'll see that the amount of taxes on your W-2 is much higher than your actual tax filings.
When you get a call from a business, what is usually the biggest problem that businesses have?
Just not understanding how they, what business expenses they can actually take, and how to keep appropriate records. So if they are audited, they can prove the business expenses. So a lot of businesses actually get audited because they haven't kept up with their business records throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, when it's time to file taxes, they estimate their expenses.
Right.
The easiest way to get flagged on a audit, or flagged for an audit, flagged for an audit, is when there are standards, there are industry standards that the IRS looks at to say, typically in an industry like this, we expect this much in car and truck expenses. Well, if somebody has estimated their expenses for the year and they take more than the industry standard, then that automatically flags them for an audit.
Even if they paid more?
Yeah, so it's really important. That's why it's really, really important for you to keep business records. And for,
Right.
Again, going back to car and truck expenses, people think, well, I can just, show my receipts or show my bank statement showing every time I went to the gas station. That's not accurate. And a lot of times an IRS auditor won't allow those type of car and truck expenses. They need mileage logs. They need records of your odometer readings. So you can see very quickly how convoluted and it can become.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make is, especially when they're in business for themselves, is they don't file, and the IRS has to figure out their taxes, and they don't take out expenses. So you always are going to have to pay more. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. If you don't file and they file a substituted return on your behalf, not only will they not count the business expenses, but they'll file you as single. So you don't get any credits for dependents. They take the standard deduction as versus itemized deductions. So it is usually a lot more if they file on your behalf.
And like I said in the beginning of the show, that envelope with the 3 letters on it, and you don't open it and you stick it in the drawer, it's not going away, is it?
No, it's not. That is correct. They have a lot of resources to ensure that they collect what they believe is their fair share of taxes.
What, we've got, this is the end of the year coming up, and are you seeing people getting extensions more? Because I don't think an extension doesn't buy you time of paying, does it?
No. So typically when somebody gets an extension, they will file for an extension in April when the original tax return is due for individuals, and then your business taxes. So those 1065s, those 1120s, those are actually due in March. But if an individual files in April for an extension, then they have until October to file the tax return. But if they owe, they will still have to pay penalties and interest, even if they filed an extension. Now, one other thing that I see a lot of, Steve, during the holidays is more individuals are seeking resolution options because the IRS stops sending collection letters and such from December 15th through January 8th. So December 15th, 2023 of this year to January 8th, 2024, the IRS stops collection, and it gives them time to catch up on things that they need to catch up on and do, some system updates and such. So it's a great time for us to work on a resolution option with clients so that because they're not aggressively collecting from individuals.
Right. The show goes by so fast. Give everybody your phone number.
Yeah, so you can reach us at 1-800-803-8584.
And how do they reach your website?
www.defensetax.com.
I love doing the show with you. It's such an important show because a lot of times people are afraid or embarrassed to ask questions if they're behind on their taxes. And it's so nice having an attorney, someone like yourself that's so knowledgeable that can answer their questions. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Elizabeth is with us every month. She'll be back again next month. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Thank you, Steve. You have a great day.
You too. It's Elizabeth Brown. She's with Defense Tax. Great company. And you can see that she really knows her business. So if you're having a tax problem, maybe you're having maybe a relative or a friend that's having a tax problem, have them give Defense Tax a call. That's it for us today. I hope everybody has a wonderful and blessed weekend. We'll be back with you again next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.